We've got somebody who I think we had on our program several months ago when we talked about things of healthcare, because he, in fact, is a healthcare strategist. He's the president and co-founder of GDP Advisors. It's Seth Denson from Texas. Seth, good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Pat. Good to be back with you, and Happy New Year.
And to you. Hope you had a great Christmas, fabulous New Year, and we're ready to tackle whatever 19 is going to bring us. It sounds like a great idea that starting yesterday, hospitals are now legally required to post online what the costs are for the procedures that they do, which sounds pretty cool. But this is not like getting your car repaired, where, I tell you, okay, an oil change is this much and it breaks are this much. Isn't this more like a car purchase where, okay, here's your MSRP, but here's the discount for this unless we do that? I mean, I understand the need for transparency. I think it's a good move, but this could get really, really confusing.
No doubt it could get confusing, and I've long since stated this is only a first step. There are many steps that have to follow, but this step had to occur for those steps to happen. And just breaking it down for you, the challenge that we have here is that if we take this for face value and thinking through it, this is hospitals posting online their expenses. Now, there are roughly 70,000 ICD-10 codes for regular expenses that can be charged by a hospital. So
that's mind-boggling, isn't it? I mean,
it is, right? So if you think about it and you're thinking, okay, well, the hospital's posting them online. Now you, the consumer, would have to farm through 70,000 possible expenditures. Then you have to say, well, wait a minute, who's my insurance company? What's their discount? And not only that, what's their discount within the various networks that they have? Now, I'm not meaning to paint a dire picture here, because I am very encouraged by this requirement. But let's take it for what it is. There are still many steps to come to where we can actually utilize this requirement in a positive way. But step one had to happen before we can start moving down that road.
How did we get to step one? Was it because in the public eye that it had gotten so confusing and so big and so unwieldy? Is this something that has come out of the Trump administration? Is this something that has been at work for a long time in Congress? How did we get to step one?
Yeah, so this is absolutely a Trump administration thing. So Alex Azar, Secretary of Health and Human Services, who is a former executive in the healthcare business for a large pharmaceutical company near and dear to where you guys are there in Fort Wayne.
Right.
He knows the system. And what's interesting, and I always draw parallels when we're looking at this, the Obama administration, through the Affordable Care Act, primarily focused on health insurance as we'll call it the target of HHS to try to drive costs down. Well, the problem with that is that insurance, that's just the financing mechanism of the healthcare system itself. What Alex Azar knows is that until we start to drive down the cost of health care, health insurance premiums will continue to rise. And if we want to drive down the cost of health care, just like everything else in a consumer-driven free market system, you have to allow the consumers to have information to make decisions. And right now the healthcare system doesn't do that, and he's made that a primary objective of the Trump administration.
In the last 5 years of my life, Seth, with knee replacements, I've had a kidney transplant. So I've had, some doctor's visits that are just normal run-of-the-mill doctor's visits, and I've had some things. Once you've had a kidney transplant, you see a hospital bill where you could have gone and bought 5 cars, So, but when you look at this and you get your bill, and we've all seen these. Okay, here's how much was the charge. Here's your discount. And then off the discount, here's what the insurance paid, and then here's what you pay. So what is the real price that they're going to tell me online? The price before the discount, or the price after the discount? Or does the discount differ from point to point to point based on what network I'm in and who my insurance provider is?
That's exactly right. So you're on the latter part of that. You're on the right track, and that the amount that I ultimately end up getting, we'll call it billed, is based on, am I with Blue Cross or United Healthcare or Aetna or Cigna? And then I'll take it a step further and say, well, am I in Blue Cross's Network 1 or Network 2 or Network 3, et cetera, right? So there are multiple layers. Here's the other challenge here, and you used the car analogy earlier. So it's not like buying the car, and here's the MSRP and the discount. It's like buying the motor, the transmission, the fuel injection system, all of that separately, because in the United States, we operate on what's called a fee-for-service model, not an outcomes-based model.
Right.
So I'm not paying for the car. I'm paying for every part of the car. And so for the consumer to go online to a hospital's website today and start to see the charges, well, you got to almost have a crystal ball and know, okay, well, I'm going to be seen by 3 nurses. I'm going to take 4 aspirin. I'm going to have 7 Kleenexes used, these many latex gloves, because at the end of the day, that's how hospitals bill.
Yeah.
And that's how the insurance companies pay.
Yeah. I know when I was in the hospital for the transplant, they would come in, the nurses would take out another pair of gloves and all that, and you'd see it hit the scanner, and then they'd give me this medicine, you'd see it hit the scanner, another bar of soap, it hit the scanner. I mean, it's so pieced together, but you're right. How much exactly did that wiper blade impact the cost of my whole car? So you might say, well, that 4 aspirin is a pretty small part of what happened. It's still part of what happened, and that's what we're looking at. So if this is all step 1, in your view, what will step 2 look like? What is the next thing to come down the pike to help the consumer on the receiving end of healthcare in America?
Well, I think there's two different structures here, and again, I'm thrilled that we're in step 1, which is getting the hospitals to start to disclose this. Part of this, too, is the overall shaming of it all. When American citizens start to actually see the true cost of this, you, through your healthcare experience, you've seen that, but many haven't. So that's part 1. But part 2 is I think there's 2 different things. I think there's an opportunity for profit here for some brilliant person in Silicon Valley who can develop an algorithm to start to piece some of this together. I think there's an opportunity there. But I think the next step then is going in and requiring insurance companies not disclose their discounts, but actually disclose their negotiated prices for services with the specific hospitals. That's going to be the next step because, again, since most of Americans access the healthcare system through insurance as the payment methodology, you want to be able to see what that insurance company has negotiated with that hospital, so then you can get to a true cost exposure, and now I can make an informed decision of, I need to go to this hospital versus that hospital.
Would this maybe, and here in Indiana, for example, in Allen County, Indiana right now, if you're on individual health, not group, but individual, you only have 2 options. But and I think they will, as those options begin to re-expand over the course of the next few years, will it not also cause some people to not just pick the right hospital and the right doctor, but then to say, okay, I know I've got that situation coming up that I have to have that operation next year. I would actually be less out of pocket with this insurance over that one on that procedure, and it might cause people to even jump coverage?
It could. It absolutely could. Listen, the problem with health insurance in the United States, and by the way, insurance companies have won, as healthcare companies have too, is Americans don't think about that health insurance ID card like a credit card, but it's the same thing. Yeah. Your costs today just become your health insurance premiums tomorrow. Think of it like an amortization schedule. They know that you're going to pay this over time. And so what this will hopefully do is start to allow Americans to start thinking about health insurance like they think about every other consumer transaction they make. The average American spends about 10 hours researching a car before they buy it, about 2 hours researching a flat-screen TV, and about 15 minutes on things when it comes to their health care. We as Americans are culpable in all of this, and we must do a better job of doing our research.
Yeah, hopefully this will be step 1 for the industry. Maybe it'll be step 1 on public awareness as well. Well, Seth, thanks so much for your time today. And as we move on and as this develops itself, we're going to reach out to you more and more over and over. I appreciate you being there. He's the president and co-founder of the GDP Advisors. Obviously knows his stuff in and around the wheelhouse of all things healthcare. Seth Denson, thanks for being with us today. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Pat.